Seems Parshas Shelach can be divided into two. We have half of the Parsha dealing with the famous episode and tragic episode of the Meraglim, the heroics of Yoshua and Kalev, not willing to tolerate Lashon Hara, negativity about Eretz Yisrael. And then the Torah shifts to three mitzvos that stand out at the end of the Parsha. We have Hafrashas Chala, we have the Nesachim, the libations that are brought along with the Karbanos, and the mitzvah of Tzitzis. Is there any connection between them? The following thought. It's so difficult to understand what happened with the Meraglim. They went, Kulam Anashim, princes of Israel. They were people who have been eating the man from Hashem. They've seen the Makos in Egypt. And yet, they sinned. And yet it seems to be that their plan was off from the beginning, and trying to decipher what Rashi and Chazal are teaching us is very complicated. It's Kulam Anashim. They're all great tzaddikim. And yet the Gemara and Sota seem to tell us that they intended for bad. What's going on? What's happening? Maybe the idea is that these people were tzaddikim from the get-go. They were real Nasim. They were princes of Israel. And they were nervous because they understood that the supernatural, spiritual world that they were living in the Midbar, seeing and eating from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hand, was going to cease upon entering Eretz Yisrael. It was going to take Klal Yisrael into a new tkufa, into a new period of time. There was going to be, by definition, a spiritual yerida. It's not possible otherwise. And therefore, the focus would turn to Gashmius. And the thought of these people, the Dor Deya, the Dor of the Midbar, the generation that had seen all this now, focusing on physicality, troubled them deeply. And they were scared. But their flaw, their fundamental flaw, was in viewing the spiritual existence of the Midbar as an ideal, and the natural existence as lacking. Hashem made this world as a world in which we are required and which we must engage the world, engage the mundane world. And maybe that's why these three specific mitzvos at the end of this parsha are given, because they fulfill that role and remind us of what our task is in life. Separating challah is taking from the most physical staple that we have, the very bread that we eat, and turning it into a mitzvah object. Harei zu challah. This is challah. We change the nature of our physical action into one of spirituality, into one of giving to the Kohen. The Nesachim take the most physical of drinks, wine and water, the one that we need for a necessity, the water and the luxury of wine, of Gashmias. And it goes on to the Mizbeach and accompanies the Korbanos. Even the Mizbeach, with all of its Kedusha and all of its holiness, can be a place of Kedusha. And Tzitzis is our covering, our clothes, even the most basic item that we need for basic human dignity, can turn into a mitzvah, can be infused with Kedusha. That's the tikkun of the Chet of the Meraglim, to live in a physical world and to elevate it. So how do we do that? Besides these mitzvahs, what do we do? The simplest way is to infuse our days with learning and davening. We still have to make a livelihood, we still have to engage the world, but we try to infuse it with Torah. But I think that there's another idea as well, and that is within our interactions with the rest of the world, we need to show that a Jew acts with Kedusha. We need to infuse Kedusha and be role models and make a Kiddush Hashem wherever we go. And making a Kiddush Hashem when we're out in public is not just a speech to give to kids at camp before trip day. There are a lot of people out there who don't like us. And some might be for good reasons, and some for bad reasons, and some for no reason at all. Our job, I believe, is at least to give them the opportunity to see, or at least have to ignore the good that we bring into the world. That the Jew acts differently, on a higher level, how we speak, the words we use, how we interact, how we talk to other people. In the end, they're going to know we're Jewish, even if we're wearing that baseball hat. But hopefully they'll know because of the way we interact, the way that we work to elevate the world. Will it solve all our problems? Will it make anti-Semitism go away? It won't. It won't. But maybe it will curb some, and will certainly make us into better people. And that's what the message, I think, of this week's Parsha is, that juxtaposition of the Meraglim, who didn't understand that we can live with spirituality in the physical world, together with these three mitzvahs, the Nesachim, the Chala, and Tzitzis, show that we could take the mundane and we can elevate it. We can elevate ourselves, elevate the world around us, and hopefully be that Or Lagoyim, be the light unto the nations that brings nachas to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whenever he says, look at my children, look how they act. That's how we want to be. And that will be the ultimate in Kiddush Hashem.